Back to Crimson Tide today. I'm your host, Zack Aitken. As Alabama gets closer to the 2026 season, the excitement continues to build around this football team. Fall camp is well underway and position battles are heating up, and there's plenty of storylines that could shape what kind of season the Crimson Tide is ultimately going to have. Today, we're going to be diving into another big Alabama football discussion and breaking down what it could mean moving forward with the team. But before we get started, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join the conversation in the comments below. But now, let's kick off the opening drive. So, for most of the Nick Saban era, seeing Alabama outside of a top 5 preseason poll, it would have been pretty unusual. But heading into 2026, Alabama just isn't outside of the top 5. We're outside of the top 10 once again. The first AP poll of the season is officially out, and Alabama's going to be beginning the year ranked number 13 in the country. And that's the lowest preseason AP rating for the Crimson Tide since 2008, where Alabama entered Nick Saban's second season ranked number 24. And personally, I don't really have a problem with it. I kind of like it because Alabama's got a lot of things to prove. Last year, the Tide started number 8, and we lost the opener to Florida State and dropped all the way to number 21, and then eventually climbed back to number 4 before finishing the season number 9. So if you're an AP voter looking at Alabama heading into 2026, I understand the questions. There's still a quarterback competition between Austin Mack and Keelan Russell, and Alabama's rebuilding an offensive line that struggled for pretty much the whole season. And there's also some questions at running back due to injuries recently. And Kalen DeBoer, he's entering year 3, still trying to prove that Alabama can consistently compete for championships under his leadership. But there is a flip side to all of this. I do think number 13 gives Alabama something really it hasn't had that often the last 15 or 20 years. And that's the opportunity to be a bit overlooked. Looking at the teams ahead of Alabama, Ohio State came in at number 1, Oregon is at number 2, and Georgia is at number 3. And then you've got Notre Dame and Texas, and they round out the top 5. Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and LSU, they're also all ranked ahead of Alabama, which means the Tide's entering the season behind 6 other SEC teams in the AP poll. And that's pretty wild when you consider the standard we're used to seeing at Alabama. But I also think this is where preseason rankings, they can be a little misleading because Alabama, they still have a lot of talent on this roster. Defensively, I think this team has a chance to be really, really good. And you've got a lot of experience in the secondary, and you've got some promising pieces along the defensive front that have come through the transfer portal. And we're hearing encouraging things about guys like Luke Metz and others like QB Reese stepping up at linebacker. And obviously, there's some questions as well. You still got Ryan Coleman-Williams, though, at receiver, and you've got Daniel Hill at presumptive RB1, and you've got a lot of talent in the tight end room. Whether it's going to be Mack or Russell at quarterback, Alabama's going to have one talented player running this Ryan Grubb offense. So number 13, it doesn't change what I think the expectation should be. I mean, we're still talking about Alabama here, but making the college football playoff, it should definitely be in the expectation for this team. And if this team can fix the running game and get consistent with offensive line play and find the right quarterback, I think Alabama has all the talent to finish way higher than number 13 at the end of the year. But there's also an interesting historical comparison here when we're talking about this poll. Like we said, last time Alabama started this low was back in 2008, and the Crimson Tide, they started out number 24, like I said, and they ended up beating Clemson in the opener and climbed quickly through the rankings and finished an undefeated season where eventually they reached number 1 in the country. Now, I'm not predicting that Alabama's going to replicate what exactly happened in 2008, but this does remind you of something. I think preseason rankings, they don't determine everything with a team. And Alabama, they should know that better than anybody after what happened last year. The Tide, we went from number 8 down to 21, but all the way back up to number 4 at one point. So number 13, I'm cool with it because now Alabama, they get an opportunity to do something that isn't very said often about this program. You go out there and prove everybody wrong. And if Kalen DeBoer and this team, he has it where he wants them by September, number 13 might end up being pretty low by the time the team gets into SEC play. So if there's one position group that could determine just how good this Alabama team is in 2026, I think we could all agree that's probably going to be the offensive line. I mean, we've talked about it all offseason. There's talent at quarterback, there's weapons at receiver, and there's talent in the backfield. And I think Alabama's defense, they have a chance to be very good. But none of that's going to matter that much if Alabama can't consistently win up front. And after roughly 10 practices of fall camp, we're finally starting to hear some really encouraging things about this offensive line. Ryan Grubb, he spoke after Monday's practice, and he said Alabama probably had its best day running the football that it's had throughout the camp so far, and that's exactly what I want to hear. Because last season, Alabama's inability to consistently run the football, it put way too much pressure on everything else offensively, and that's something that's going to have to change. And what I like about what we're hearing is that necessarily this isn't about one offensive lineman that's suddenly dominating practice. It's about the entire group that's starting to play better together. And Alabama, I think, has 3 spots that appear pretty solid right now up front. I think Jackson Lloyd at left tackle, Rayson Delgado at center, and Michael Carroll at right guard, they're all locked in their spots. So the 2 big competitions remain at left guard and at right tackle. Will Sanders and Mal Waldrop Jr., they've been battling at that left guard spot, while Javen James and Nick Brooks, they're competing at right tackle. And according to Grubb, these competitions, they're starting to get pretty interesting. Sanders, he missed some time and had to work his way back, but Grubb said he's had a really good couple of days and he's starting to look comfortable again and getting back into his groove. And at right tackle, James and Brooks, they're turning that competition into a legit battle as well. And personally, I think that's a really good problem to have. I mean, you don't want to be searching for guys, being capable of playing well. I mean, you want a couple of guys that can play well enough so it's difficult to pick between who you put on the field. And eventually, Alabama does need to settle on its 5 because offensive line play, it's not having the best 5 talented individuals on the team. These guys, they have to be able to operate as one unit. They have to be able to communicate. And they have to be able to understand how the guy next to him is going to be handling different looks that the defense presents. And we've already seen why that matters. Alabama's offensive line apparently struggled early in the first scrimmage before finding some rhythm as things progressed throughout the scrimmage. And since then, the improvement, it seems to have been continuing. Grubb said that Alabama has now installed more of its run game package, including its gap schemes, and the first team offensive line really started putting everything together during Monday's practice. And here's the part that really caught my attention. Alabama had multiple long drives starting on its own 20 and moved the ball all the way down the field. Grubb said that the offense ran the ball really well during those possessions, and he said he was super encouraged by what he saw. And I think that's really significant because Alabama doesn't need to become some offense that just runs the ball 45 times every Saturday. That's not what Ryan Grubb's offense is going to be. But you have to be able to run it where defenses give you the opportunity. I mean, you got to be able to convert the 3rd and 2. You want to be able to run the football in the red zone. And when Alabama gets a lead in the 4th quarter, you need an offensive line that can help finish the game, put it on their shoulders, and go win the game. And that's what I'm looking for with this group. And the next major test is going to come in Alabama's second scrimmage, which will be on Thursday. So can they take what they've done over these last couple practices and do it all over again when things become more game-like? Because if this offensive line is really starting to come together, my confidence in this Alabama offense, it's going to go up huge. So we can spend all day debating, Austin Mack versus Keelan Russell, but whoever wins this quarterback battle, they're going to need these 5 guys in front of them. And right now, Alabama might be finally getting closer to finding that offensive line it needs. So Alabama's running back room, it's taken a couple of hits during fall camp, but we've finally seen some encouraging news about one of the bigger young names in that backfield, and that's E.J. Crowell. Ryan Grubb, he also spoke again to the media on Monday, and while we still don't have an exact date for Crowell's return to practice, Grubb, he fully expects the 5-star freshman to be available once Alabama starts its season against East Carolina on September 5th. And considering everything that's happened at running back over the past week or so, that's pretty significant. Because remember, Alabama's going to be without A.K. Deer for roughly 6 weeks or so. Deer, he suffered an ankle injury during the first scrimmage last week, and multiple reports have him missing roughly 6 to 7 weeks or so. So Crowell, he didn't participate in that scrimmage either, and for a minute there, Alabama lost one of its 2 younger, more talented running backs, both at the same time, really. But the situation with Crowell, it doesn't appear to be nearly as concerning. So Grubb, he said that Crowell is doing really good and should be back sooner rather than later. And more importantly, he said they fully expect him him to be ready for the opener. And that's the good news. But the question is going to be, what kind of role can Crowell realistically have this early in the season? Because this is a guy that missed a lot of valuable practice time. He enrolled early at Alabama, but he was sidelined during spring practice with a soft tissue injury. He finally got healthy during the summer, participated at the beginning of fall camp, and right now he's sidelined again. And that's got to be tough for a freshman, especially at running back, where your responsibility, it goes way beyond simply taking a handoff like you took in high school. You got to be able to understand pass protection. You got to be able to know where the blitz is coming from, and you've got to understand the passing game as a whole. So you've got to earn the trust of your quarterback, and you've got to earn the trust of your coaching staff as well. And that's why I think Crowell can help Alabama very early, because I don't think he's your typical freshman running back that we're talking about here. I mean, we're talking about a former five-star guy who reclassified from the 2027 recruiting class into 2026. And physically, he already looks like an SEC running back. He's around 5'11 and 225 pounds, and his running style is exactly what Alabama needs. He's physical, he can run through contact, and he's able to finish runs. But he's also got the explosiveness to turn a crease into a big play, a home run. And Grubb, he also gave us some insight into Crowell as a person. He called him a really tough kid, and he loves football, and he described him as someone completely bought into the Alabama program. Grubb, he basically admitted they don't know exactly when Crowell what will give him immediately when he's able to play, but he sounded optimistic that Alabama can get him ready to contribute early. And with AK Deer's sideline, that opportunity, it just got bigger for Crowell. I still think Daniel Hill is the guy that's going to Alabama will be leading on early in the season. Ryan Grubb, he described Hill as a workhorse, and at around 235 pounds, he's going to give Alabama that big physical presence in the backfield that they need. Kevin Riley, he also brings experience and gives you another option, which especially will help in the passing game. But after that, I think things are wide open. Trayshawn Brown has apparently been one of the surprises of camp. Grubb, he's praised his vision, anticipation, and receiving ability and pass protection. So putting himself into the conversation as well, but putting all those tools to work. And that's why I think getting Crowell back is going to matter, because Alabama doesn't necessarily need him to walk onto the field against East Carolina and immediately get 20 carries. They're going to need him healthy, get him back into practice, and let him start stacking some reps and gradually figure out what he can handle. Because the talent's not going to be the question with E.J. Crowell. It's going to be availability. And if Alabama can finally get him healthy, I believe that there's going to be a role for him in this offense in 2026. Especially now that AK Deer is going to be missing a lot of time at the beginning of the season. So that's definitely some positive news. We still don't know exactly when E.J. Crowell is going to return to practice, but according to Ryan Grubb, Alabama expects him to be ready when the season begins. And considering how quickly this running back room has changed during fall camp, getting that five-star freshman back, it's going to be a really big deal. So we're going to go back on the recruiting trail today and talk about a name Alabama fans need to be getting familiar with a 2028 class, and that's Antoine Wilkes Jr. Wilkes, he's an offensive tackle out of Cass Technical High School in Detroit, Michigan, and he's already shaping up to be one of the bigger offensive line prospects in the country. And when I look at Wilkes, there's actually a former Alabama offensive tackle who immediately came to my mind, and that was Jonah Williams. Now, I'm not saying Wilkes, he's going to be, the next Jonah Williams for Alabama, but physically, I saw some similarities. Wilkes, he's currently listed around 6'5", and his weight goes anywhere from 260 to 280 pounds. So he's still relatively light for an offensive tackle, and that's what reminds me a little bit of Williams when Alabama was recruiting him. Jonah Williams, he wasn't this massive 330-pound tackle coming out of high school. He was listed around 6'5" and 270 to 280 pounds as a recruit. But what made him special is the way he moved, and that's where I see another comparison with Wilkes. When you watch Wilkes, he doesn't move like your typical high school offensive tackle. He's very athletic, and he's light on his feet, and he's able to get into space. And he has the movement skills to get to the second level and block linebackers in the running game. And as a pass protector, his combination of length and quickness, it gives him a really high ceiling as well. One of the big plus that he brings is his arm length, which has measured over 35 inches. So the biggest thing with Wilkes, it's going to be adding strength. He's still got that lean frame, and that's completely understandable considering he's only entering his junior year of high school. But if Wilkes can get up to that 290 to 300-pound range with keeping that athleticism, you're talking about a player with a legitimate left tackle potential, especially in the conference like an SEC. And the recruiting rankings, I feel like they reflect that upside. The Rivals industry ranking, they currently have Wilkes as the number 16 overall player in the country and the number 2 offensive tackle and the number 1 player in the state of Michigan for the 28 class. So naturally, everybody's going to want him. Michigan, they're going to be a major factor because he's right there in Detroit, and schools like Michigan and Ohio State are also involved as well. And Wilkes, he's already narrowed down a huge offer list to a group that includes Alabama, Georgia, Florida, LSU, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and others. But this is where his recruitment's going to get really interesting from an Alabama perspective. Wilkes, he's reportedly scheduled to visit the Tuscaloosa on October 10th, and that's not just any weekend. That's going to be the Georgia game. Alabama's going to be hosting Georgia at Bryant-Denny Stadium that night, and Wilkes, he's going to be expected to be there for the weekend. So that's a big opportunity for Kalen DeBoer and his staff. You're going to be bringing in one of the best offensive tackles in the 28 class onto campus for what should be one of the biggest home games for Alabama's 2028 or 2026 season. I mean, Bryant-Denny Stadium at night for that game, it's going to be rocking. There's going to be a ton of elite recruits on campus, and Alabama can get an opportunity to show Wilkes what this program looks like on one of the big nights in SEC football. And there's another reason to feel good about getting him onto a campus in Tuscaloosa. Wilkes, he reportedly grew up viewing Alabama as a dream school for him. Now, we've all followed recruiting long enough to know that doesn't necessarily guarantee anything, especially in modern college football. Michigan, they have the hometown advantage. Big programs like Ohio State are going to make a big push, and just about every major program in the country is going to want an offensive tackle that has this kind of upside. But Alabama has an opportunity here, and considering how important offensive line recruiting is going to be for the program moving forward, this is the exact type of prospect that Alabama needs to be involved with. He's long, he's athletic, and he's still developing physically, but I think he's got a little bit of a frame that, reminds me of Jonah Williams, and we all remember how that turned out for Alabama. So there's a long way to go with Antoine Wilkes Jr., but circle October 10th, because that Georgia weekend, it could be a big one in Alabama's pursuit of one of the best offensive tackles in that 2028 class. So guys, that's going to do it today for an episode of Crimson Tide Today. I appreciate everyone tuning in and being part of the Alabama football discussion. With the 2026 season getting closer, there are many questions to answer and position battles to watch and players who are ready to make their mark on the season. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit a like and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss Alabama football content. And also, don't forget to leave your comments in the comment section below. I always want to know what you think and who's the player you're most excited about to watch this season and what storylines are you going to be following the closest. So thanks again for watching Crimson Tide Today, and until next time, roll Tide.